Hey there, it's just you and me right now, so let's have a real talk. No scripts, no formalities, just straight up honesty. I want to dive into some things that have been on my mind, and maybe they've been on yours too. Let's talk about who we are as Africans, where we're headed, and the kind of future we can build together. I'm not here to lecture you or preach from some ivory tower. I'm right here in the trenches with you, seeing what you see, feeling what you feel, the frustrations, the hopes, the dreams we all share for this beautiful continent we call home. What if I told you what you see, hear, or feel is all an illusion, a lie, a well-orchestrated narrative to keep you blind and helpless from discovering your true potential? Because the enemy knows your worth, your potential, and just how powerful you are, and that is exactly the reason they do everything to keep you struggling, surviving, to make you hopeless to the point you hate yourself and your kind. Let us explore who you are as an African, an enigma, the foundation of life, the river of wealth, and a fountain of wisdom. You ever stop and think about how diverse Africa is? I mean, we've got over 1.4 billion people speaking more than 2,000 languages, spread across 54 countries. It's wild. But here's the thing, despite all these differences, there's this underlying thread that ties us all together. A shared history, shared struggles, and hopefully a shared vision for the future. But let's be real. We've been divided for so long by borders drawn up by people who didn't have our best interests at heart, by conflicts that pit brother against brother, by stereotypes that we've sometimes internalized. It's like we've been set up to see each other as rivals instead of family. Think about it. How many times have you heard someone identify more with their tribe or country than with being African? I get it. Our local identities are important. They're part of what makes us who we are. But what if we could embrace both? What if being Kenyan or Nigerian or Egyptian didn't have to compete with being African? Imagine if we flipped the script. What if we truly embraced the idea of being one people? Not just in words, but in actions. Supporting each other, trading with each other, learning from each other. The African Union's Agenda 2063 talks about an integrated, prosperous and peaceful Africa driven by its own citizens. That's not just some lofty goal, it's a necessity, because together we're unstoppable. Look at how the world is changing. Global powers are forming blocs, strengthening their positions through unity. Meanwhile, we're still debating whether we should even work together. It's time to move past that conversation. The question isn't whether we should unite, it's how we do it, in a way that respects our diversity while leveraging our collective strength. I was in a small village in Senegal last year, talking to an elder about traditional farming practices. He told me something that stuck with me. When spiders unite their webs, they can tie up a lion. That's us. Individually, we might seem small against global challenges, but together, we can face anything. Our cultures are so rich, so vibrant. From the Swahili coastal traditions to the Yoruba artistry, from Egyptian antiquity to Zulu heritage, we've got this incredible tapestry of human expression. But how often do we share these treasures with each other? I remember attending a Pan-African festival in Ghana, where artists from across the continent performed together. The energy was electric. A Moroccan drummer, a South African vocalist, and a Congolese guitarist created something beautiful together, something that couldn't have existed if they'd stayed isolated in their corners of the continent. Cultural integration isn't about losing what makes us unique. It's about sharing it, celebrating it, letting it inspire others. It's about a Tanzanian child learning Ethiopian history, a Cameroonian student studying Algerian literature, a Zambian entrepreneur collaborating with a Rwandan tech developer. The digital age has made this easier than ever. Through social media, streaming platforms, and online communities, we're connecting across borders in ways our ancestors couldn't have imagined. Young Africans are creating Pan-African content, sharing stories that resonate beyond national boundaries. This isn't just entertainment, it's the foundation of a shared identity. But we need to be intentional about it. We need educational curriculums that teach African history as a whole, not just national narratives. We need exchange programs that allow young people to experience different parts of the continent. We need media that showcases diverse African perspectives. Now, speaking of leadership, it's a touchy subject, I know. We've had our fair share of leaders who've let us down. But let's focus on the ones trying to make a difference. Take Burkina Faso, for example. The country's been through a lot: coups, terrorism, instability. But in the midst of all that, there's been a push for something better. Captain Ibrahim Traoré came into power during turbulent times. His leadership has been marked by efforts to address corruption head-on. Recently, he launched an anti-corruption task force aimed at cleaning up the government and restoring public trust. It's a bold move, especially in a region where corruption has often been the norm rather than the exception. But here's the kicker. It's not just about one man or one task force. It's about setting a precedent, showing that integrity in leadership isn't a pipe dream. It's possible. And when leaders lead with integrity, it trickles down. People start believing in institutions again. They start believing in change. I spoke with a teacher in Ouagadougou who told me that for the first time in years, she feels hopeful. "We've seen promises before," she said, "but this time feels different. There's action behind the words." That's what leadership with integrity does. It restores hope. And it's not just in Burkina Faso. Across the continent, there are leaders at various levels, from national politics to community organizations, who are choosing integrity over personal gain. They're the ones who understand that true leadership isn't about power or how much you can take. It's about service for all. Think about Thomas Sankara, Burkina Faso's revolutionary leader from the 1980s, often called Africa's Che Guevara. His commitment to integrity was legendary. He drove the cheapest car, lived in the simplest house, and focused relentlessly on improving life for ordinary Burkinabe. His legacy continues to inspire, not just in Burkina Faso, but across Africa. Leadership with integrity also means being accountable to the people. It means transparent governance, participatory decision-making, and a willingness to admit mistakes. It means putting national or continental interests above personal or partisan ones. Ask yourself, is my leader serving the entire country, or they are serving their own interests? Why do you keep voting for selfish leaders term after term? But let's not put all the responsibility on the shoulders of official leaders. Change doesn't just come from the top down, it comes from the ground up too. Citizen engagement is crucial for building the Africa we want. I'm thinking of young Kenyans who came together to challenge a punitive finance bill, or the youth movement in Sudan that peacefully demanded democratic change, or the women's cooperative in Mali that transformed local agriculture practices. These examples show that we don't need to wait for permission to create change. We can start where we are with what we have. Whether it's organizing neighborhood cleanups, supporting local businesses, or simply challenging harmful stereotypes in our daily conversations, every action counts. Technology has democratized participation in unprecedented ways. Through social media, crowdfunding platforms, and digital advocacy, ordinary Africans are making their voices heard and mobilizing resources for causes they believe in. Take the Number End SARS movement in Nigeria or the Number Fees Must Fall campaign in South Africa. These weren't led by traditional political leaders. They were driven by everyday citizens, especially young people, who used digital tools to organize, amplify their message, and demand accountability. All right, let's talk money. Not in a greedy, hoard-it-all kind of way, but in a how do we lift each other up kind of way. For too long, Africa's been seen as this resource-rich continent that's somehow resource-poor. How does that even make sense? Agenda 2063 lays it out clearly. It emphasizes the importance of trade within Africa, of industrializing, of educating our people. It's about taking what we have and making it work for us. Not just exporting raw materials and importing finished goods, but creating value here on our soil. Think about the African Continental Free Trade Area, AfCFTA. It's this massive opportunity to boost intra-African trade, to open up markets, to create jobs. But it's not just going to happen because it's on paper. We need to actively participate, to support African businesses, to prioritize Made in Africa. I met a young entrepreneur in Rwanda who's built a thriving chocolate business. Instead of exporting raw cocoa, she's processing it locally, creating jobs, and selling a premium product across the region. Why should our resources create wealth elsewhere when they can create it here? She asked. It's a question we should all be asking. In this age of technology and climate change, Africa is endowed with critical minerals that the world is greedily extracting without our full control as Africans. These are our minerals, our wealth, our gift from our Creator. We need to zealously protect our wealth, our land, our minerals. Not by killing each other, but by defending this wealth for ourselves. When one African thrives, we all have to thrive peacefully. Education plays a huge role too. Not just formal education, but skills training for the new era, innovation, inventions, and entrepreneurship. Giving people the tools they need to innovate, to create, to build. Because at the end of the day, economic empowerment isn't about handouts. It's about creating an environment where people can produce and market their goods at the right price in a free market. Look at what's happening in tech hubs like Nairobi, Lagos, and Cape Town. Young Africans are developing solutions for African problems, mobile banking systems that work without internet, healthcare apps that connect remote communities with doctors, agricultural technology that helps farmers maximize yields. This is the kind of innovation we need: homegrown, contextually relevant, and scalable. We need tech genius to develop social media platforms for Africa with Africanicity or Ubuntu in mind. Let's get specific about industrialization. Africa holds about 30% of the world's mineral reserves, 8% of the world's natural gas, and 12% of the world's oil reserves. Yet we continue to export these resources in raw form, missing out on the substantial value that could be added through processing and manufacturing. Take the Democratic Republic of Congo, which produces a significant portion of the world's cobalt, a mineral essential for electric vehicle batteries. For years, this cobalt has been exported raw, only to be processed elsewhere and sold back to us at premium prices. But imagine if we built processing facilities, manufacturing plants, and research centers right there in the DRC. The economic impact would be transformative. The same goes for agriculture. We export coffee, cocoa, and cotton in their raw forms, then import finished chocolate, beverages, and textiles at much higher prices. By developing our manufacturing capacity, we could create millions of jobs, reduce import dependency, and build wealth that stays within our communities. Some countries are already making progress. Ethiopia has developed industrial parks focused on textiles and garments. Morocco has become a hub for automotive manufacturing. South Africa has a well-established food processing industry. These examples show what's possible when we commit to adding value to our resources. Now let's get down to earth. Literally, our environment, our land, our home. We've been blessed with some of the most breathtaking landscapes and diverse ecosystems on the planet. But we're also facing some serious challenges: deforestation, climate change, loss of biodiversity. In 2024, the Africa Conservation Forum was held in Nairobi, bringing together stakeholders from across the continent to discuss transformative solutions to our environmental crises. It's clear that there's a growing recognition of the need to act, to protect what we have before it's too late. But conservation isn't just about big organizations or government policies. It's about us, in our communities, making choices that protect our environment. It's about sustainable farming practices, about reducing waste, about understanding that when we harm the earth, we're harming ourselves. Africa is on the front lines of climate change, despite contributing the least to global emissions. We're seeing more frequent droughts, floods, and extreme weather events. The impact on agriculture, water resources, and human security is already severe and will only intensify. This is where our unity becomes even more crucial. Environmental challenges don't respect national borders. A drought in the Horn of Africa affects food security across the region. Deforestation in the Congo Basin impacts rainfall patterns throughout Central Africa. We need coordinated, continent-wide approaches to conservation and climate resilience. One of our greatest resources in the fight for environmental conservation is our indigenous knowledge. For millennia, African communities have developed sustainable practices that allow them to live in harmony with nature. In the Sahel region, traditional water harvesting techniques have helped communities survive in arid conditions for centuries. In the forests of Central Africa, indigenous peoples have sustainable hunting and gathering practices that preserve biodiversity. Along the coasts, traditional fishing communities have systems that prevent overfishing. By valuing and integrating this knowledge with modern science, we can develop conservation approaches that are both effective and culturally appropriate. This isn't about romanticizing the past. It's about recognizing that our ancestors understood something fundamental about living sustainably that we seem to have forgotten. So where does that leave us? We've got this vision of a united Africa, led with integrity, economically empowered and environmentally conscious citizens. It's a tall order, no doubt. But it is possible. It starts with you and me, with the conversations we have, with the choices we make, with the way we treat each other. It's about breaking down the barriers, both real and imagined, that keep us apart. It's about holding our leaders accountable and stepping up as leaders in our own right. It's about recognizing the wealth we have, not just in resources, but in people, in culture, in ideas. It is about being a proud African. Our God poured all his strength and secrets in us. We need to awaken the African pride, that patriotic soul that once cared and protected its fellow kins, that African spirit that placed Africa first before any other people. I don't have all the answers. Heck, I probably have more questions than answers. But I do know this: we can't afford to wait for someone else to come and fix Africa for us. We've got to do it ourselves, together, one continent, one people. When I look at young Africans today, I see a generation that's more connected, more informed, and more determined than any before. I see people who aren't satisfied with the status quo, who are demanding better governance, better opportunities, better stewardship of our resources. This is the energy that will transform our continent. Not grand speeches or policies that gather dust, but the daily actions of millions of Africans who believe in a better future and are willing to work for it. So what do you say? Are you in? Are you ready to be part of this transformation? To see beyond the borders and divisions, to challenge the old tired narratives we have been fed, to embrace our shared identity and common destiny, to build an Africa that stands tall in the global community, not as a recipient of aid or pity, but as an equal partner, a source of innovation and leadership. Because that's the Africa I believe in. That's the Africa I'm fighting for. And I hope you'll join me on this journey.